Good evening, and welcome. Wait, why does that sound so robotic? Hello, and welcome out, ladies and gentlemen, to the Q&A/story so far bonus stream. Hello, welcome out. We are going to be talking the story so far from episodes 19 to 34, chat. Thank you so much, Joel. You didn't have to do that, bud. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's very kind. Gifting us up to Beans, Hulky, Mutant, Joe, Chirin, and MKC. Let me... Oh, no, actually, I was not swinging to that scene because I've remembered that we're not doing an actual episode. We're doing it on this scene today. Welcome out. I'm going to take away the starting soon. I'm going to move us to be a little bit more central. I feel like I'm blocking Timothy if I go there. Let's start off that. Let's go up here. And then we're kind of in the corner. Hello! Welcome out, chat. It's good to see you. Thanks so much for stopping by. We are essentially today, I thought, we don't have an episode because we've got a couple of people missing and whatnot. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. This is bad. Hold on. Because I'm trying to just put this onto YouTube. So it'd be easy if I explain right at the beginning. But I'm going to sneeze. No, it's going. Okay. So, thank you so much for that, Joe. We are taking this week off. A couple of absentees and conflicting schedules. So I was like, also, we've just arrived at Wolfguard. So I thought it's a good time to take off a week and let everyone refresh and come back to it next week with the new adventure in the new nation and island of Wolfguard. So I thought, okay, well, back after episode 18, after kind of chapter 1 of our story, we did a recap of episodes 1 to 18 for anyone that might wanted to come in late. So I thought it'd be cool to upload another one of those onto YouTube where someone could come into the stream and feel like they're caught up by just watching 2 videos. So we'll keep this kind of concise. The actual recap portion of it will probably just be about half an hour, if that. I've just pretty much recapped every episode on a Google Doc sheet. Going to go through them, discuss some of the stuff that's going on during it. And then afterwards, we just do a Q&A. And then we slap that up on YouTube as a little bonus thing for people to catch up on. So this is mostly for people that haven't seen Godforged, or for those who are watching actively and want to ask questions about some of the episodes, some of the stuff that's happened so far, or even some of the stuff that's upcoming. So yeah, welcome out, everybody. We'll dive into it. We'll slap this bad boy on YouTube, and hopefully we can get some more people caught up onto the show. Because I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh man, you're 34 episodes in. Just to make it easier. Okay, I love our theme song, but it's so epic for the background. So let's go for this one. So, I've got my Google Doc sheet here. We did our recap up to episode 18. And the story, in a brief nutshell up till then, was a party, previously known as the Cockslayers, had met up. And through this kind of just everyone's destinies intertwining, sorry. They were set on the same path, heading to a town called Carburn together, going on some adventures there, up into the mountain to deal with Kruthics. And eventually, they led them to a town known as Albridge. After some small little side quests around Albridge, they came across their friend, the Baron Ashford. Episode 18 had him announcing himself as the descendant to the Keswick's throne. He revealed himself to be Haemon II. This started a war between Westmorn and the newly founded kingdom of Keswick. So, that's episode 1 to 18 in a briefest nutshell. So, episode 19, New Journeys Await. After Baron Ashford declared himself the king during the vouching. This episode was mostly a shopping one, where the party just went around Allbridge, finding different things to buy, heading over to Cadven's, our magical shop vendor. But also a couple of very significant things happened, and I will go through each episode's mostly significant portions so that we can kind of condense it. Basil ran into someone called Almo, an old bard friend that he spent some of his time on the road with. They have a kind of unique, special connection, the two of them. Very close friends, maybe even more than friends. Basil finds himself in a position where he's thinking of both Affy and Elmo. They even have a little jam session together at a tavern later on in that episode. Saphira also is interested in the Speaker of Kessex, Escher Tolan. She goes up to her office on this tall tower to inform her of the battle that took place at Fort Helmwold, where they fought Ramir. There's a bit of flirtatious conversation before Escher Tolan teleports her down to the ground. But it's significant because Saphira often thinks of Escher Tolan. When the party settled for the night in a tavern in the lower section of Allbridge, a purple-skinned wisping man, humanoid of some kind, climbed through Basil's window and put him into a dreamy stupor, a nightmare. That was the episode 19. Episode 20 picked up after that. Episode 20 called In Your Wildest Dreams. Now, most of that episode was a fight between the party and the two assassins. One, Satyr, fighting outside against Saphira and Scold with poisons, and the other, a creature known as the Dreamfester, that dragged its enemies into its dream world, where it had extra abilities, but also the party did as well. They fought the two of them, causing immense damage to the tavern they were in, which led to them wanting to sneak away and get away from the scene. Meanwhile, someone that they had ran in before, quite an upfront individual called Justakar Feyrin, a paladin in the service of Xeris, the god of justice, found Timothy and Saphira trying to escape the scene, and he attempted to arrest them. Episode 21 picked up from there, Xeris' justice. Saphira and Timothy were in hot pursuit and got taken into custody by Feyrin, who brought them into the temple. Whilst Fia and Basil worked favours with the king, Fabia discovered where Fog, a local tavern kind of underground criminal, had taken the body of the Dreamfester, and Scold aided in breaking Saphira and Timothy out of prison. The group came together to gather evidence to use against Feyrin. They found out he was the one that must have sent the assassins and lured the creature down into the bottom of the sewers in an attempt to get rid of one of the temples down there, a temple to the god of sins. He was banished to a realm known as the Halls of Justice. The party then left the city, heading over towards the Sister Cliffs, where their ventures first started, to check on Silk, who was guarding the tomb of Volrent, unbeknownst to him, aka Magnathor. They're kind of the campaign's current villain, an unkillable giant. Upon arrival, though, they discovered that Silk had been duped 12 hours prior. Yule, another one of the villains working to resurrect Magnathor, pretended to be Fia in a disguise, and brought Uven, a Krigven similar to Scold, but a betrayer, along with him. They entered the cave and gained access to the tomb, and that episode ended with the party gathering around the tomb's stones trying to work out how to get in. So that's episode 19 to 21. Overall, this is probably the second act of the campaign, all of these episodes together. Feel free, chat, by the way, to ask any questions along the way, and I'll answer them as we go. We'll do like a broader questionnaire right at the end as well. This is just for the sake of just continuity for YouTube. I love the disturbing justice systems of different area in order to get one of the biggest figures thrown into an extra dimensional prison. Yeah. It won't be the last we see of the Temple of Xeris. Welcoming everyone who's coming in as well, by the way. We're doing a big catch-up stream recap of all the episodes so that people who want to get caught up on YouTube and whatnot can come into these two recaps we've done. and feel like they can start watching us ASAP. Episode 22 and episode 23 are pretty much part of the same act, so I've condensed them together. Episode 22, called Closed by Dragons, and episode 23, The Blood Curse of the Betrayer. In pursuit of Yule, the party descended into the tomb of Volrend. She was attempting to resurrect the giant known as Magnathor, and after a series of puzzles and a couple of fights along the way, one with an angular worm, another with some golems of these Goliaths that were reawakened, petrified in stone, the party managed to capture one of Yule's people, a gnome named Nash, and prepared to enter the final chamber of the tomb. In the next chamber along, they came across a stone golem, built by an ancient dwarven architect known as Dolgrim, a genius. Timothy convinced the golem that he was Dolgrim, and received his legacy item, Dolgrim's tool belt. In my campaign, every character has a legacy item that levels alongside them. It's separate from their attunement slots. Yule had woken up Magnathor, and Fabia witnessed as he, along with his lieutenants, passed into portals, heading for separate objectives. The Illithid and a mage toward Wolfguard, a Rakshazar and an Abishai toward Fjordhelm, and Magnathor, Yuven, and Yule into a purple plane of mist and magic. They left behind a blood-cursed Fomorian, essentially a giant that is hunchbacked with these great pustules of blood across him. They battered it, the weakest of the lieutenants as well, but still a very tough fight for the party, which they managed to fell him at the end. Episode 24, Little Magicians, had the party say their goodbyes to Silk and made their way towards Steel Harbor. Also along the way, Nash the gnome left, but they didn't inform Silk that he was one of their allies now and that they let him go, so Silk and the rest of the goblins murdered Nash. But the party didn't care. Their hope was to catch a ship to Wolfguard at Steel Harbor in the south. Along the way, they ran into a group of children wizards in training and their teacher, on their way to Oxenfold Academy to learn how to be magical magicians of sorts or wizards or scholars. When they arrived at Steel Harbor, they were told by several captains that no one is journeying out to Wolfguard due to the newly declared war between Westmourne and Kessetts. They came across a halfling though, Captain Heartbloom, with a great big hat. She agreed to take them on her ship, the Scarlet Whistle, so long as they helped her find a crew. Episode 25 and 26, Building a Crew and Setting Sail. These two episodes were some of the most fun episodes we've done. They were the players essentially going around interviewing all the potential crewmates. They had to pick out a crew, a shipwright, a cook, etc., surgeon and a ward. They built up their crew and began to set sail. Ovid showed back up. If you'd seen the first recap, Ovid was a dwarf they ran into in the mountain back near Carburn. And in the end, they recruited Halio, who claimed to be the best navigator, Duty, a slow but kindly turtle cook, a religious sailing group known as Acreon Whispers, a bunch of halfling fishermen for food along the way, an elven druid shipwright, an ogre named Lug at the helm, Zolaris, a dragonborn medic, and Tyra and Tyrus, two Fjordhelm Viking-like raiders that wanted adventure and plenty of fighting. Episode 27, On the Open Sea, and episode 28, Black Flag and Red Deck, these two episodes being quite similar. They set sail on their 6-week journey to Wolfguard, and the crew of the Scarlet Whistle battled pirates and a sea hydra in these episodes. Mostly, these episodes were comprised of them meeting and learning more about their crew, getting a bit more familiar with them. Episode 29, Winds Blow the Mountains Tall. Sailing by the Volcarian Mountains, which, in my world, Valkyrie is where the Godforged is located. But no one has ever been inside. The mountains reach the skies, there's a mist over it that makes you lost if you try and fly in it. The labyrinths beneath the mountains are impossible to venture through. So nearby the mountains, they encountered some unusual untapped magic, untamed magic, along with a massive bronze dragon, assumed to be ancient, that ascended from the water and warned them not to try and enter the mountains. They attempted to question it, but it gave them little. Along that way as well, they came across some escaped prisoners, feigning to be lost sailing soldiers. They worked out that they were prisoners and let them sail off towards exile in the Vahazi. We're closing on the end now. Episode 30, The Cost of Curiosity. Passing by the long-lost city of Advent. This 3 episodes was one that was completely spontaneous and kind of an offshoot of the sailing mission. How many prisoners are in the extra-dimensional prison? And how catastrophic would it be if someone let them all out at once? It's a good question. The Halls of Justice. This is for the familiar thing back for Xeris' Justice. The Halls of Justice are essentially this paladin-built prison. Xeris is the god of justice and kings and laws. When they take someone who is deemed to be blasphemous or dangerous to the material plane, a lot of Oath of the Watchers paladins work for this organization. They'll lock them away in this prison. The halls itself are full of different creatures and different beings and different people, and the way that time works there is a little differently. So, this organization has existed for quite a while. In terms of number of prisoners there, I won't spoil, but I will say if they were to ever be freed, it would be a campaign in itself. Very, very, very bad if that were to happen. Episode 30, The Cost of Curiosity, had the party going to a city known as Advent, a long-lost city, which, in the first wars of humanity, was lost due to people summoning demons and devils, thinking them to be the same thing through their naivety, causing a war in their streets. The city was lost and locked off, seen as kind of a cursed ghost city. They decided to venture there, and they found out the city still had at least one occupant, Zalfel, a devil of high ranking, living up in the throne room. A long table, plenty of food, and plenty of deals to be made. Everyone denied the deals, Saphira coming close, revealing that she wishes to become a god, and that is her mission. Trying to find the Godforged to ascend. But the cost was too high, and she refused the deal. Timothy, though, accepted. Zalfel would find where his mother went after she died, her soul. And in response, Timothy would do something for Zalfel. He revealed some information to Timothy that he is not allowed to share with anyone else. If he does, his life would be forfeit, as per the contract. The information he knows is of very big significance. He accepted. He then offered a playful deal to the entire party. He had locked off sets of demons around the city. 3 sets were left. If the party went out, defeated all the demons, he would reward them with magical items. And that leads us on to episode 31 and 32, Prisoners of the Abyss and Where the Bells Toll. This is them going to each of the demon locations. The first, a creature made of mold, moss, and pestilence. It creates a portal to a demon realm in its chest. It was a fight against time, fighting the creature as creatures started pouring through this demon portal. They defeated it. The second, a Glabrezu of considerable intelligence, a demon that is smarter, though despite its appearance of this large, pincer hand, kind of dog-like creature, canine in its looks. It was located in a catacomb. They made a deal to feign its death, learning that the Glabrezu's arch-nemesis was Zalfel, the devil that they had made the deal with in the first place. They let him escape, telling Zalfel that he was dead. The third was a cathedral full of demons. They managed to kill them all through quite a long fight, and with the inconvenient aid of an incubus hiding among them. Saphira claimed a demonic axe that was cursed, and Zalfel arrived to reward them all with a magical item of their fancy. The incubus was one of his lovers, and had been trapped there for a millennium. The two of them left through a portal, Zalfel and his incubus, and just as the episode ended, they saw a bird land on an old branch of a dead tree, signifying that life had once again returned to the city of Advent. Also, yes, Fabia got herself a sentient sick bow. Literally a sick bow. Episode 33, Onward to Wolfguard. After returning to the ship, a scion appeared on board the ship, wanting to talk to the party. It warned them that they killed one of Guraka of the Deep's messengers, and they must pay a toll. After a little deliberating with his group, Skull decided to throw the scion into the water, thinking, what's the worst that can happen? They journeyed on for a while before a small moving island came into sight. Before long, they could see the island was moving. It was in fact a cluster of drifting fire ants. Giant drifting fire ants. Tyra and Tyrus promised battle for this trip, refused orders and tried to steer the ship toward it, bloodthirsty, causing a fight to break out between them and Saphira. Thankfully, no one died. Timothy dispatched the ants with some whirlpools, and the Queen was killed aboard the ship, the finishing blow dealt by Captain Heartbloom herself, which she's very proud for. And finally, the episode that we just did last week, Welcome to Wolfguard. The final week on the sea, the party began closing in on Wolfguard. Before arriving, however, they came across a dwarven ship with a singular dwarf and a couple of humanoids wearing masks aboard. They quickly saw through the ruse of the dwarf, with Fabia sneaking aboard to hear what the masked individuals were talking about. The two of them teleported out of the ship, and it turned out they had slaughtered the entire crew to get whatever was in a safe on the bottom deck. This safe was a metallic one built with magical sealants, and had been built into the hull itself. The party discussed leaving it behind after finding out something was alive inside and was potentially dead by now. But Fabia used her Gem of Wonder to unlock the door, one of its small abilities, her legacy item, and revealed a frail, exhausted woman inside. They took her and the dwarf aboard and left the dwarven ship behind. The woman said she was a princess from the eastern parts of High Loma, and that when they arrived in Wolfguard, she would message a contact. Saphira looked after her. She said she had been kidnapped by soldiers and knew little of what their plan was, a hostage to be sold. The party argued over whether she was telling the truth or not. Finally, they arrived on the shores of Wolfguard, greeted by the captain of a ship called the Manticore. He veered them into the harbour, warning them of a sickness broken out in another harbour. Skuld and Timothy journeyed across the dock and brought a map of the island nation of Wolfguard. And then they were welcomed to the island. Also, something to consider along the way is Fia, through her bird, Tack, that can send sending messages, was attempting to contact her mother, who was after someone called Cassell. She had travelled up to Wolfguard herself, but Fia could no longer contact her and her crew. On the island of Wolfguard, they hunt down this Illithid. This hasn't happened yet. This is their strategy. This is their plan. They are after an Illithid and the wizard that went with them. They also have reason to believe Abatha, a hag, might be found here as well. And that is where we left off last week, and that is where the story will continue next week. So, thank you for abiding by me, chat, whilst I kind of read off a quick recap. So anyone who is interested in watching the show and hasn't watched any of it, or wants to kind of learn, or has come in late and just wants a little bit of backstory, we have a recap for episodes 1 to 18, and this is episodes 19 to 34. That's all cleared up now. If you want to come in now, you can. You can just go and look at those two recaps. Spend 2 hours instead of 60 or 70. I don't know. What's 30? An average of, let's say, 34 times 3.5. So 119 hours. You can kind of cut down into 2 hours and catch up quicker, so you know what's going on through that.